Hello, everybody, and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Flynn. I'm very delighted to be hosting today, and we are joined by the master of mockups, James Barnard.
You come up with like new nicknames for me for the start of every
Well, you
stream. I
really
like
liked
it.
the logo legend that I did
I
yesterday,
did.
so I did spend a couple of seconds
Thank
thinking
you
about.
for putting the effort in. I appreciate it. Nice to be back. Thank you for having me back. Yeah, yesterday was fun. I enjoyed it. I think
Great.
we did a pretty good job of getting this logo out there. And I'm looking a bit tired today because I was up at 5 o'clock this morning to do my weekly run club. I don't know what it is about
Uh,
Australia. Nobody told me that people like to start the day early here when I
Everyone
immigrated
gets
to
up so
Australia.
early.
It's
Yeah,
like a competition to see how
definitely.
early you can work out before everybody else. I think, obviously it's to do with the heat and you're trying to like get out of the sun, but honestly, I still can't get used to it. Anyway, we did our running club this morning. The guys have seen the logo, and good news is they seem to largely love it, which is fantastic.
Cool.
So basically, we've got a bit of work to do today in order to sort of roll out a few different variations of the logo, and I want to show your guys how I present to clients, like how I actually build out a presentation.
Yeah.
So yesterday we got to a point where we were looking at the t-shirt design, and I was chatting with Mike, the founder, this morning, who was sort of erring on the side of doing this version because they're very kind of attached to this t-shirt, but I want to try and
Okay.
convince Mike to do a slightly newer design, because the issue with this t-shirt design is there's not a lot of space for the design that we've made. It's my fault. I've made a logo that doesn't scale all too well, but it'd be nice if we could blow this logo up a little bit bigger on the front at least, and maybe try out a new design and see what they think of it. And I can use my skill in Illustrator and Photoshop and a bit of presentation to try and work up some variations of this design using some mock-ups to prove that this design looks good in the real world. So what I want to try and do is basically create a sort of logo suite that I would do for most clients. Okay, so we've got our type, our logo type, we've got our logo mark that we came up with yesterday. I've got a portrait and landscape variations of this, but I want to try and make a badge variation of this logo to fill in this little gap that I've got in my logo suite here. So I'm just going to copy this logo mark and then head over to my next artboard. And because this logo mark is a little bit on the taller side, I'm just going to center this to my artboard with my lovely little key here and just blow this up just a smidge. I want to create a badge version that kind of suits the style of that logo. And I think a tall one would work pretty well here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this text around the design in a nice, neat way. And then we can pull that into our suite of logos, which we can then pull in to start making our presentation with. And I'll show you a few little sort of workflow tips and tricks to get that done as well.
Awesome.
So what I'm
And
going
as
to do,
we're going through, we are live. So if you have any questions, we had some great questions yesterday. And if they're sort of quick ones that we can answer as we're going along, they're
by
always
all means.
great because James is excellent at explaining kind of some of the shortcuts and things he does. And if it's sort of a bit more meaning of life stuff, maybe I'll save a question or two for the end.
Yeah, don't distract me too much.
Yes.
Okay, so all I did there was just drew a rectangle around our shape, trying to keep the edges as even as possible. And I'm just going to round the corners of this rectangle so that's creating this sort of oval shape. And I'm resize that just a little bit. I'm going to use this rounded rectangle as a path to put some type onto. So the first thing I'm going to do is just copy and paste. Sorry, just copy this top bit of text up here. And then in our type tool, I'm going to click and hold on that, go to type on a path tool, and then I'm going to just tap on the rounded rectangle that we did and paste in our type. Okay, making sure that this is centered in our paragraph tab, I can grab these little handles here and just spin them around and get them to a point where they're actually in the center of the design. So I'm going to put this first bit of text across the top. Do you know what? I'm actually going to pull this right down to the bottom to center this in case we want to go a little bit further around the design as well. So here we go. I'll just grab this little one here. I wish these handles were bigger. Flynn, can you speak to your contact at Adobe Illustrator and make those handles bigger for me, please?
Didn't you do like a thing showing how for old
I
people
did.
like us?
I
Using things?
did, but it doesn't work with those handles. For those who didn't see
Oh,
that Instagram reel, the handles in my Illustrator document, you might have noticed, are very, very big
yeah.
and sort of blown. You can grab them. And in order to change that, if you go to Illustrator settings and user interface, I think it is. Yep. And then, oh no, so sorry, selection and anchor display. And under anchor points, handles and bounding box, just crank that slider right up to the max, and it makes those handles nice and big. I also like this handle style filled, which makes them huge, and I don't have to lean into my screen or put my glasses on to select those handles.
Is it the
All right.
designer equivalent of like boomers having really big type on their phone?
Yeah, basically. I mean, you could do that in Illustrator as well.
You just steer into the skid. You're just like
settings, user interface. There is actually like a UI scaling thing. If you turn that right up, it will make things massive. I'm not going to do it today because I need it. Yeah. All right, so we've got running with friends across the top. If I just double click on my type on a path tool and I press preview, I'm just going to align the path to the center of the path. So beforehand it was sitting on top. You can have descender as well, so it goes underneath, but I want it on center so that when I flip this over and make a version that goes underneath the design, so I'll just do that now really quickly. We'll grab, change this to paradise point. And then again, just tapping, double clicking on our type on the path tool, preview, and I'm just gonna press flip, which will turn that text upside down. And now I can just rotate that whole thing like so, and then center that to my artboard where it was. If I just press Command and Y to see outline mode. Let's just drag that over, holding down Shift to keep it in line, and there we go. All right, pretty good. So what I'm gonna do now is also just pop in these two little added elements. So NGC, if you didn't know, stands for Northern Gold Coast. So I'm going to pop that one over to the right-hand side, and then keeping that one in line. I've just made them outline. I'll select them both, tap Queensland, and you see how it goes lighter blue? That makes it a key object. Now, when I align, using my align tools, it will align to that object. So vertically centered, vertically centered. Press Command and Y to go to outline mode so I can make sure where that path is and put the text right in the middle of that path on both sides. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab both of those two text options there and just bump up the typeface so that it starts meeting in the middle like this. Looks like I've put the type a little bit too low, so I'm just going to nudge it up just a little bit like that. Brilliant. That's not looking bad.
Nice.
So we've got a nice little badge version of the logo that we can put inside things like our t-shirt designs. We've got a bit of an optical balance thing going on here. Obviously the bottom of the design is centered, but the top of the design is looking a little bit tight over there. And I don't know if I lean back a little bit, obviously there's no better way than just eyeballing it. I may just optically balance that a little bit by nudging it over to the right ever so slightly. I think we get away with that. Maybe that was one too many. One nudge. Fantastic.
You can spend hours just...
I could spend all day. You know, designers like things to be sort of mathematical and precise, but sometimes you just got to eyeball it, haven't you? Okay, fantastic. All right, we've got our badge option. I want to grab that, and using my navigator panel, which we used yesterday, I'm going to find my suite of lockups, plonk that into my little space for a badge between our designs here, and then I'm going to resize that just to make it look like a nice sort of designed. This is one of those really annoying quirks of Illustrator. Sometimes when you resize using the transform tool, the text starts moving along the path. So I'm going to leave it for now. Don't worry, we'll sort this out in a minute. So, okay, so we're basically ready to present this now. So one thing I'm going to do before we move over to InDesign to work up our presentation is I'm going to pull up my libraries panel in Illustrator. And if you don't use CC libraries, first of all, what are you doing with your life? It is unbelievably powerful. I'm just going to start by grabbing my logo here, and in the bottom of the screen, if I just I'm going to just pull this over to my tab and snap it to the right so we can see the bottom of it. Oops, lost it. It's fallen off the edge of my monitor. By the way, if you didn't know, I use two monitors when I'm working, and I have all my tools sort of floated over to the right-hand side of the on the right-hand monitor. I don't know why that's not lining up. We'll just do it this way. Bottom corner, there's a little plus symbol, and I'm going to add my graphic. Okay, so I'm going to pull that in. And I'm going to do this with all 5 of these. So I'm just going to select this one, add that graphic, and then you can also, I think you can drag and drop these in as well. Yeah, that works too. And then I can select this, drag that one in. And you'll notice in the libraries
as
panel,
they are, like as vectors,
that's right, as
Of like
vectors, an
saving and
Illustrator
copy and
created
paste.
file. That's right. You see underneath each one, you probably can't make it quite out, but it says AI underneath. So that's basically an AI generated file underneath there. And you'll also
Don't freak
notice
out,
inside.
that means Illustrator.
Yes, not artificial intelligence. Come on, the original AI, OG AI. Also, you'll notice I've got colors in here as well, and I can do things like add type styles too. So if I click on this and then press new character style, that'll also pull in the typeface that I've used. So if I'm ever working in a document, I can pull that style over to another one. Now, the beauty of libraries is that when I go over to my presentation in InDesign and pull up my libraries panel, look at that. There's all those files that we just worked on, and we can actually rename them from in here. So I might just call this one logo mark, etc. We'll do just for speed's sake, we'll just do this one as well, logo badge. Fantastic. Okay, so this is how I like to present my work. I have a bit of a school of thought on this. There's a really fantastic video. I think we talked about this before, actually, in one of our streams, Flynn, about how to present your logo design work. And there's loads of schools of thought on it. I watched a really great video by Ben Burns at The Future, and he recommends doing things a certain way, and I've taken bits and pieces of his advice. If you want to find that, just Google how to present your logos by The Future, and you'll find it. But essentially, it goes like this. Okay, so we do a recap of the brief, the client showing the old version of the logo and showing anything else that we've included in our discovery phase. We've got our brand nouns, our overview of the project, the original design. The next thing I want to do is do a full color version of the logo, isolated on white, drunk on negative space. So there's nothing in the sort of surrounding it to distract from the design. And I can just pull that directly from my library panel into InDesign and then center that to my artboard like so. So nice, striking visual that just shows the logo off in all its beauty on negative space. And I'm also, with this one, I'm going to show the portrait option of the logo as well, so that we're showing that we've got a version that works with our type. So, explaining the name of the club, basically. The next thing is the strongest mock-up in our arsenal. So for me, usually when I work with a client, I'm going to ask them, what's the most used format for this logo? Where's this logo predominantly going to go? And then in my presentation, I'm going to prove immediately that my logo is satisfying all of that criteria. Okay, it's a really great way to kind of just like prove that you've been listening and you've been paying attention to what the client's been saying all along. So if I pull up my links panel, I've already preloaded a few Photoshop mockups in here. So the best way to edit any pre-existing asset that's been linked in InDesign is to click on it, and then in your links panel, if you press right click and then edit original, and that should bring up Photoshop. Here we go. So now every time I edit this document, I can now bring in my logo file. So let's take in, let's do this version. Sorry, I've got to bring in my libraries panel so you can see what I'm doing. So libraries panel in Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. All assets are there linked, so I can just drag these straight in, and then I can just place this on my screen in a nice way. In fact, I'll do this one as like, kind of like a corner badge element, like so. Great. Now, if I press Command S to save and go back to InDesign, and then you'll see we've got a little hazard icon here. I just press this little button to update that link. Now that link is updated in my presentation. Same thing on the back. I'm just going to right click on that one. I'm going to do edit original, which will take me into Photoshop again. Then we can put our running with friends badge across the back of the t-shirt, drop that in place, get it nice and centered. Move that down just a bit. Command S to save, back to InDesign, give it a second to load. What's the links panel for the updated asset? Should go yeah, there we go, hazard icon. So you can actually just go through, save a bunch of files, and once they've all been saved, you just click this little update button, and it'll update all the assets within the presentation as well.
Nice.
Right, so great. We've got our logo design in the original version of the t-shirt, and basically, I want to now prove that this looks nice in the real world. So if I double click on my go down to my next page in my presentation here, this is our founder, Mike. I've protected his identity with some emoji icons here.
Like I gave him glasses. He's a cool guy.
He's super cool dude. He's from England as well. Represent the Brits in Australia. So right click on Mike, edit original. We're going to go into Photoshop. Now I've done a little bit of Blue Peter magic here. Here's one I prepared earlier. So this is a really low res version of this image downloaded from our Facebook Messenger group that somebody sent across. I've just tightened this up a little bit. So in the layers panel, you'll see I've done a few things. I've done a Firefly upscaler just at 2x to make this image a little bit more. So that's before, after, a little bit cleaner. To do that, by the way, if you go to image, generative upscale, click on that, and it'll give you a few options. You can use a few different AI models to upscale this image. And then also what I've done is I'm going to remove the old logo just using generative fill. So again, using your contextual taskbar, I've got rid of the old logo. So watch where the logo is on the chest. Just turn this layer on. Done. Okay, so this image is now ready for me to put the logo design in place. So what I can do is from my layers panel again, grab the logo mark, drop it into my Photoshop file. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. I'm just going to try and position this as best as possible. There's a little bit of a skew going on. He's angled slightly towards the left. So what I could do is hold down Command on this corner option here, just pinch that down a little bit to kind of like warp it into place. I could do right click and then actually I need to convert that to a rasterized object to do that. But basically I'm just trying to like position this roughly in place like so. Now one other thing I've done before we got started here was to create a displacement filter for this image. Okay, so I want to basically see the wrinkles that are behind his t-shirt there, behind the logo. I want to kind of incorporate that onto the actual mark to make it look more realistic. So just turning off the logo mark for a second. All I've done to do this is made that whole image a smart object and then added a slight Gaussian blur to this.
I don't know how to say it either.
I don't either. I should know this by. Let's say Gaussian. I think it's Gaussian. Okay, I've just blurred it up a smidge. Okay, and then I've also added a curves treatment to make it really vibrant, and then black and white. And then all I'm going to do is do File, Save a Copy. I've already done this, but you see I've called this mic displacement, like so. So we're saving this as a separate PSD file, and it's in a different folder, so that we can use this as a displacement map. So turning off those layers. I'm now going to turn my logo mark layer back on again. And if I go to Filter, Distort, Displace. Right, so here we've got a few options. So horizontal scale and vertical scale is the strength at which the background displacement filter affects that logo mark. So in this image, we've got a few wrinkles that are kind of going on the diagonal. So they're going to go across the vertical and the horizontal. So I want to put something in both options there. I'm just going to start off with 5 in both the horizontal and the vertical. And I'm going to make sure the undefined area says wrap around. When I press OK, I'm going to select that displacement layer. So if I just press spacebar, that's the displacement layer that we're looking at. It's got nice high contrast. So what it's going to do, it's going to warp the image to the dark and light pixels within that PSD file. So when I press OK, fingers crossed, oh, a little bit too much there. So it's going crazy and made it completely messy. So all we have to do is double click on the smart filter and over in our layers panel over here, double click on that and then just change a couple of options. So if I just take the horizontal one off for a minute and just leave that as 0, press OK, and grab our displacement map again. That's a bit better, a little bit more realistic. Cool. So now what I can do is if I go in my effects panel down the bottom in the layers here and go to blending options, and then I pull up the underlying layer, and you see you got these little sliders. This just sort of shows how much white comes through the image when you slide this through. And you see how it's kind of like a little bit pixelated. Let me just zoom in a little bit first, so you can sort of see what's happening. It's a little bit small on screen. So here's our logo mark. Effects, we'll go blending options, bring this up. Now I'm going to split that bottom arrow. See how it's kind of like really pixelated and not a very good effect. If I hold down Alt or Option on that bottom white arrow, and then drag, it's going to break that arrow apart. And now it's basically creating a gradient between that underlying layers effect. So if I go too far, it's a little bit too blurry, but something like that, where the sun is sort of shining through and making it a little bit more sort of realistic. And there we go.
That's really cool.
There's our logo in place. It's working reasonably well when it's viewed small. So if I press Command S to save, back over to our InDesign file, and there we go.
And this is great, like, because obviously, like, you might have a client who has signage out the front, and they're like, we need this to look good on our signage out the front because 10,000 people walk past it. We're a jewelry store or something. Yeah. And in those situations, you can't use a mock-up.
Right.
Because it's their store. So this is a really good example of why, like, stock stuff is great, like AI stuff is great, but sometimes you need to, like, literally have the owner wearing the cap or, in this case, the shirt or the store.
It's something I ask for when I do my discovery phase with a client. So when I ask them, where's this logo going to be predominantly used? And they say, oh, inside our office or, on the front of the building. I say, can I have a picture of it? And then you just, you work your magic in Photoshop, remove the old logo, put the new one in. Having that skill in Photoshop, actually, it really helps sell that design in because you're proving immediately that the new design is holding up in its main use in the real world, which is brilliant. Okay, so here's our logo suite. So this is the next thing in my presentation. I'll include like a suite of logos. Actually, sorry, before I do that, I usually will have some sort of rationale in my design as well. So this is like explaining how the logo came to be. So, pause the YouTube video and read this at your own leisure. And I've already sort of created a place where I can put my design. So if I pull in the portrait version, and if I just right click on that in the libraries panel and do place linked, it'll pop that in my box there, and I can take the stroke off. There we go. So this is like how I would actually present this to a client. So just showing with a little bit of a diagram what, all the features of this logo. Sometimes in this diagram, I'll do this noun plus this noun equals our logo. And I'll make a diagram basically explaining the etymology of the design. But we've got our original nod to our footprint in there. We've got our park tree, we've got our waterway underneath, and that little path marking inside the design in two places, inside the logo type and inside the logo mark. So it's kind of like, showing I care a little bit about this design. I've done my homework. I've done some background research, and I'm putting in concepts that I think he will like. So once that rationale is done, I'll then move on to showing off the logo in all its glory. So usually I'll do that with some sort of wrap up of the logo suite. So for in here where we had our badge version, I can just drag that logo badge from our libraries panel and just drop that in place. And now, beautiful thing about this is that it's not in Illustrator, so when I resize this, it's not going to move my type. There we go, looking nice. And we'll pop that in. So that's a lovely sort of suite of logos that we can use. So, this design might not be used on a t-shirt. It might be used in something like signage, a race. Sometimes, you might have like a gazebo or a tent or something with your running club's design on it. So we've got a few different options to choose from here. So we've created a nice, versatile suite of logos that we can use in almost any situation. Now,
that's really cool.
I was chatting to Mike this morning, and I showed him a different variation of the t-shirt design, and he said the new version that I showed him looked a little bit too much like a football shirt. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try and convince Mike that is not the case, and we're going to try and do a new design of our t-shirt and see if we can convince Mike to change his mind and choose the new version. And the reason I want to do this, obviously, because we want the design nice and big on the front of the t-shirt, and the original design doesn't allow for that really, unless we create some kind of like background for it and plonk it in the middle, which isn't the most elegant solution.
Yeah, the V is kind of like you'd kind of be overlapping where you want it, like above kind of the breast, kind of here.
Exactly. Really even if my design was like super versatile and as tall as it is wide and worked in all sorts of different formats, even that spot isn't like the biggest spot for the front of the t-shirt. So let's just propose a new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this Photoshop mockup file, which I've purchased. I think I got this from Adobe Stock actually. But if I click on this and right click and then do edit original like we had before. So here's our t-shirt mockup, and let's try out a few different things here. So I've got some cool little features that I've been working on this morning. So if I click on the collars and then I tap on this color that I've got in my library here, I can change all the colors to blue. T-shirt color, I can change this to the darker blue. So I've basically lifted the colors from the original T-shirt design that we had here. So I'm sticking to the brand, you know, showing a bit of heritage, but the new design is going to look something along these lines. And this markup has a wicked little smart object feature in here. So if I double click on this T-shirt design here, also if I just press on my mockup and I go to window, arrange, and then 2 up vertical, I can arrange those side by side. So let's move my libraries panel over here for a minute. So if I bring over, one other thing I need to do. Remember yesterday how we created this, let's just zoom out a second, find it. We made this logo by masking off this shape here. We basically put a shoe shape around this design and then sort of mask it off with our clever little technique we did. I'm also just going to drag this into my libraries panel and save that. And we'll just call that, let's call that, hang on, let's let that load in. We'll call it background asset, maybe? Background asset. Great. Just give that a second to load. So that should now show up in Photoshop. There it is. Brilliant. So I'm going to grab that, drag that onto my layer here. Just zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to bump this up. Get it nice and big. Hit enter to commit that. Now in my colors palette here, I can right click on that light color and do apply color overlay. I'm just going to add that to that shape, and if I press Command and S, that'll save that smart object and bring it over to the T-shirt design on the left hand side. A little bit strong, so we can knock that back. I'm going to knock it back to 20% by pressing 2 on my keyboard. Save that. There we go. Little more subtle. It's a nice little background asset, still part of the brand. And then let's bring in our portrait version of the logo, drop that into the middle of our design. We'll center that to the artboard. And I'm also going to, on my colors panel and white, I'm going to right click and do apply color overlay, make it white. And then I'll just bump that up a little bit. If I press Command S to save that, looking pretty good. Cool. Maybe a little further down. So now we're utilizing the whole space of the T-shirt. We're getting that logo nice and big on the front. That's pretty cool. All right, same thing on the back. So on my layers panel over here, we've got T-shirt design on the back. By the way, I watched your video, your reshare of was it Jeremy Lord's post in Photoshop about the layers panel in Photoshop? Unbelievable tip. If I double click on this in my layers panel, I'll drag it over to the right hand side. I'm going to make the do the same thing actually. I'm just going to grab that background asset from this layer, drag it up to the tab, put it onto the back of the T-shirt, center that to the artboard. Just for a minute, if I just make this 100% and save it, I'll go back over to my my left Photoshop file here. You see how the layer is actually just showing the artwork bounds of what's inside that layer, so it's nice and easy to see. If you go into your panel options in Photoshop and you click on thumbnail contents, layer bounds only, usually it's entire document, so it will show the entire artboard. And sometimes if you've got something really, really small in the bottom corner of the artboard, you can't see in your layers panel what that thing is. Just select layer bounds and it only shows what's in that actually inside that layer as the thumbnail on the right hand side, which is really cool. Handy way of working. Good old Jeremy, thanks for that one, didn't know that. All right, so let's grab in our badge and we'll drop that from our libraries panel into our back of our T-shirt design. Just move this over so we can see it. Center that to our artboard. By the way, I have the same keyboard shortcut in Illustrator that I do in Photoshop, just runs the same action, center to artboard. Right click on our color, click apply color overlay, and let's just save that. Command S, and look on the left. Good, let's just make our badge a bit smaller, I reckon. And we'll nudge it up between the shoulder blades. Brilliant. All right, let's save that and back over to InDesign. Give it an update. There we go.
Pretty cool.
Right. Not bad, eh? Not
I
bad.
like I like the pattern quite a
It
lot.
looks good. It looks good, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Mike was complaining this morning it looks a little bit like a football shirt, but I think it works. So yeah, see what we think. Mike, he's going to put a poll on the Facebook group to, and we're going to have a vote after this. One other thing I can do to sway Mike is to open up my little old pal here, Firefly boards. So this is an image I took this morning of the group. Again, blanked out their faces. These were the only people left over that hadn't already gone for coffee, who are still wearing the shirt. So we can use a little bit of trickery in Firefly boards to put our new design in front of the old one and see how it looks. So if I click generate image over here, and actually before I do that, I'm going to take I don't even need to export this. I'm just going to grab a screenshot of this from that file that I just made in Photoshop here. Just screenshot that as a white JPEG, go over to Safari and just paste that into my Firefly boards panel. And then there's a really nice little organizational tool here where you can organize your images.
I love that.
It's so nice, isn't it? It's such an OCD thing just to sort of
so good.
resize things. It's really good fun. Okay, so let's go generate image. I'm going to click on the little sample from Canvas here. I'm going to go sample this image and then just use style reference. Actually, uses composition reference. I forget. I think it's composition. And then you click on sample from Canvas. Click on that and use this as a style reference. I'm going to say swap out the I don't know if I'm going to do this right. Swap out the t-shirts in the group image with the new blue design. It's such a lame prompt. Hopefully it will work. I'm going to click on the AI models down here. I'm going to choose Gemini 3.1 Nano Banana. Usually does a pretty good job of that. I'm going to click on generate, and let's cross our fingers and our toes and see if this works well or not. I've got a little dot loading in here. You'll see these ones that I've done before. This morning I couldn't get rid of the history, so it does work, but fingers crossed this one does because we're live on camera. Okay, where did we go? Generate image, still loading. Let's just give that a second to load. Let's go back to InDesign and just have a quick look at some other mockups that we could do while we're waiting on that one. So I got this other mockup here, which is pretty cool. This sort of bag style mockup. So again, I'll click on this, right click, edit original. Let's just prove, one other way where this design could be used in order to kind of like satisfy the requirements of the design, so that we're proving that the design sort of holds up in multiple different formats. Again, if I click on here and do window, arrange to up vertical, and then on the one on the right, let's bring in our, let's do our, hang on, this is the one in the middle, isn't it? Let's just do our, delete that one, bring in our type only. And I'm just going to put that in the middle. And then I'm going to bump it up to the top. Oh, over the top of our rectangle. Right click, apply color overlay. Save that. Let's nudge it down just a smidge. Cool. Yeah, I love a good great little mockup. Me too. Good old smart objects. Hey, that's a nice one. Maybe we'll put our logo mark underneath. Something like this. Center that up to the type lockup. Press save. It's looking a little bit dark. Let's maybe make that one the same blue. Let's do right click, apply color overlay, press save. And maybe we'll make it just a little bit bigger to fill the space. Show off that beautiful design that we've been working on. Nice. Over on the right hand side, we've got another bag design. How are we doing for time? Oh, we've got plenty of time. Let's pull this one over the top. Let's do the type on the side with our lovely lockup here. And then we'll do the same old color overlay that we did on the other one. Right click on that color, apply color overlay, save. Cool. And let's just save that. If we go back over to InDesign, I've got a lovely bag mockup. Pretty decent. All right, drum roll, please. Let's go over
Did it
Two
work?
R5. I've done something wrong already. I can see what I've done wrong already. I used that. Well, I used it as a style reference, not a. I used it as a composition reference, not a style reference.
Right.
So if I go image, sample from canvas, click on that one, image, sample from canvas, and we'll run that again.
Can you show us what the result was when as well, that one?
The one that I messed up.
Yeah.
Sure. because I did composition reference, it has just made me a completely new image, which is probably not worth showing because yeah, Urban Explorers, brilliant. Not what we wanted at all. Let's get rid of that. Okay. All right. Well, while that one's loading, we can do something else in InDesign. Okay. So let's go back to our logo suite over here. And oh no, we've sent this off to the client and the client has made a change. They don't like the design. They want to tweak something within the design. So NGC, let's say no one knows what NGC means. It means Northern Gold Coast, but it's not, it might not be as recognizable to some people. So maybe they want to change the type. So I need to change this design, but I've just put this design in a bunch of different formats. I've put it in a bunch of different Photoshop mockups. It's all over my presentation now. I need to tweak it. So all I have to do in my libraries panel, I'm just going to double click on logo badge, which is going to open up Illustrator. So this is like a live linked asset within the libraries panel. See, it's got this weird little file name at the top of the thing. It's like a sort of, serial number.ai. This is the actual asset that's in our libraries panel now. So if I just change a couple of things here, let's say I wanted to change this to Australia, and we'll just move this one over to Queensland, something like that. Now all I have to do, press Command and S to save. And if I go back to my presentation, that change is going to filter down to all of the assets within my presentation. So the change has been made there. If I go over to Photoshop and find a mock-up where I've used this design, if I click over here and then double click into my smart object, and then you see on the layers panel over there, there's a little sort of hazard icon.
Yeah.
Watch on the left hand side. If I right click and do update all modified content, it's just swapped out the type on the left hand side. So now that I can press save, and that t-shirt mock-up has now been updated as well. And again,
that's
save.
Really cool. I wonder if there's a way to automate that.
Yeah, well, the issue is that because that was inside a smart object in Photoshop, I would need to dive in, update it, save it so that the actual mock-up itself gets updated, and then bring that through into the presentation itself. Really cool. That's a pretty handy way of working. So now my change has been filtered down. So, this is what I do when I'm working with clients. When I have changes that I need to do a new presentation for, all I now need to do is within all of those mockups is double click into my libraries panel and change that instance inside that library, and it filters it down all the way through to the document. So I've now just saved myself hours of time having to redo all of those mockups. As long as I placed those assets, cleverly using linked assets with the libraries panel, that's a really nice way of working. All right.
Yeah.
Did I do it right this time? Dun, dun, dun. Let's go over here.
Urban
Look
Explorers.
at that.
Oh, no, that's cool.
That's pretty decent, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Not bad at all. All right, we can take this a little bit further. Those were just the people that showed up with our with the actual shirts on, but there were lots of other runners there this morning that were wearing a lot of different outfits. So let's just do that same thing again. I'll get rid of this reference and we'll sample this image instead. And this is everybody that was there this morning, and we'll just run that again and see how it does. Now there's some people wearing vests, some people wearing all sorts of different, someone's leaning down there, sort of obscuring the design. And just to save ourselves a bit of time, I actually did this earlier on, and look how good of a job it did. Unbelievable.
Wow, it's pretty good.
How amazing is that? That's Firefly boards. So there we go. We've proved to Mike that the design is holding up in different formats. Everyone looks really cool. They don't look like a football team. They look like a a great group of runners with very stylish shirts, ready to print. So then I can export that. They do, don't they? So I can now download that image and I'll pop that into my presentation. Oh, allow. And we'll put that. Just going to move this over here so I don't show you my downloads folder just in case there's anything dodgy in there. Let's go over to our group mockup, and I'm going to drag in my downloaded file. And there we go. Club t-shirt.
Nice. It even
mock-up.
kept their cool faces.
It did, didn't it? Like how I blurred out the license plates in that as well, so the background cars don't get seen. So there we go. We've got a lovely looking presentation. We've got a nice bit of rationale. We've got a few mock-ups proving that the design is working. We've got the logo looking good in a different kind of format. I might do something like do the Facebook page. I could show this, on like a tent or something like that, all ready to present. And then, and then I'll send this off to the client and see what they think. So yeah, just to recap, that's so recap of the project, full color logo, isolated on white, and whatever strong versions we need. A mock-up of the sort of the format that will be most predominantly used, and then we'll go into a rationale, sort of detailing how the design came to be. Full suite of logos, so we're showing that the logo is also working in loads of different formats. I might also do different color variations here as well. Inverted options, showing it sort of white on black. And then just a string of mock-ups that are proving that the design is working in the real world, including our lovely looking group of runners here.
It's really awesome. I love the explanation as well. I always find that the explanation of the logo is so important, because when they leave the meeting or close their laptop and then they're explaining it to someone, you sort of need them to be able to explain it to someone else. I've always liked that sort of. So
just going a bit further with that. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry. Yeah, the going a bit further with that really helps with sign off. Generally means less rounds of amends on a project. When I first started out, I used to just send over a JPEG and an email to a client and say, look what I did, and expect to charge thousands for it. And it just feels cheap, doesn't it? It feels like you haven't really tried. But when you make a presentation, also when I send over a presentation as well, I won't just, these days, I won't send over just the PDF. I'll actually record myself on Loom, explaining it, doing a bit of a sort of introduction as well. But I don't get on a call with a client until they've had a chance to really digest the design. I don't like to sort of stare at their initial reaction and go, do you like it? Do you like it? And make them feel uncomfortable. I want them to sit on the design for at least a couple of days. Like if a client comes back to me within like the first few hours with feedback, that's a big red flag for me. It means that they haven't really considered it. They haven't taken the time to sort of sit on the design and let it sort of sink in. Like change is jarring, especially if it's like a rebrand and you're working on a design that's been around for a while and you're changing it. You want them to sort of sit with the design, sleep on it a couple of times, really think and consider, what you've done, and maybe even share it with some loved ones in your life, to make sure that, it gets the litmus test of the general public. It's always a good thing. Then we'll get on a call and discuss next steps and rounds of amends. And usually most of my projects, they usually sign off pretty quickly. In my contracts, usually 3 rounds of amends, but I've rarely used all 3. It's fantastic. So this really helps creating this kind of presentation.
Quite generous, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's more than enough to get this to a good looking place. And then I'll send over a presentation like this.
Awesome.
Pretty good.
Really cool.
That's just about everything. So, yep. Easy peasy. We can do some questions if you want, or we can maybe do some more mock-ups.
Yeah, we're almost out of time actually, but I think there was a question from yesterday. I'm not sure we got on. We did. What was your? I think it was a nightmare project, and you talked about that. What's one of your favorite projects you've worked on? Because we ran out of time yesterday to ask that one.
Favorite projects,
other than coming on Adobe Live and hanging out with
of course. I'll bring up my website actually. Let's go to our website, barnard.co, to show you some of my other logo design work. Click over onto logos, and these are some of my more proud projects. There's all sorts that I'm
spread.
Yeah, the logo folio, 2026 logo folio. These are some of my more proud projects. I love them all for different reasons. Metalama up here is one of my favorite, mainly because it's won the most awards. It's a software company that uses the C# programming language, and we managed to work in a little llama icon into the hash symbol there. One of those designs that I was just sort of really lucky as I sketched. It was like literally the first sketch I did. That llama revealed itself to me, and all I had to do was just make a couple of little cuts in the design.
And did you sketch?
There
like,
it
were
is.
you pencil and paper that one?
Yep, I did.
Yeah.
I just drew out a hash symbol and then got a felt tip pen and went over the top of those little lines and realized, my goodness, there's a llama in there. It only works when the llama is sort of angled backwards, so there's a little bit of like an italicized hash symbol there. But that one just came out so beautifully. I was really proud of that one. But then, you know, some of my more proud projects are the ones that where the budget wasn't huge, but the client just was like really appreciative of it. And I think Billy Bear's Nursery has to be one of those. This is a childcare centre in the UK that was sort of going through a bit of a rebrand. And, you know, we chose building blocks as the sort of representation of growth within childcare. And obviously we needed a bear in there. So we managed to find a bear in the negative space of 3 building blocks. You know, arranged neatly in the design, and it wasn't the biggest paying job, but you could just tell that it meant the most to them as well. And there's some cool little things in there, like the nose is tilted over just to the left a little bit because of the balance of the blocks there. How this one's sort of sitting over the top of this, so
that's cool.
Sort of optical balance
the letters are just
going
slightly
like a little bit jaunty, a little jaunty typeface there. But yeah, I've got, you know, all my projects are sort of I love them all for different reasons, but those two, and I think are like, you know, 2 of my absolute favorites. I've got some in the pipeline that I think are better. You know, I feel like my work always kind of gets better as I go along. So the older stuff I kind of don't like so much anymore. But some of the recent projects that I've got coming out, which I can't share yet, are some of my favorites. So watch this space. It's gonna be a really exciting year.
Itching to share, but he can't. Can you share? What's the elephant one? Do you mind just having a look? I quite like that.
Oh, QD Tech. Yeah, here we go. This is
not seeing that
a software company which is just using the acronym Q and D to make a trustworthy elephant.
Yeah, lovely.
You know, so yeah, really simple design. Taking the period from inside the logo type there and using it for the eye. So we've got a Q, we've got a D, and the trunk of is the Q, the stem of the Q there, and the period is representing the elephant. So yeah, nice and simple.
I like that one a lot.
Took a while. That one took a lot longer, and obviously it looks easy, but you know those types of designs are they take a long time to sort of squeeze out, and that one was a real tricky one. But we managed. I knew it was in there somewhere. I knew that I could get this to work in some form or another. But yeah, I was really proud of that one.
Nice. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Cool. So yeah,
we had one more question. Thank you.
Sure.
Dark Hours. Where are we? Making the Running with Friends logo a smart object on the bag, is that how it matched the angle? Sorry, Manny, I missed that question before.
So this is an off-the-shelf mock-up that uses smart objects in order to manipulate stuff. So what you could do is, let's say you wanted to put that as an angle on the side. I'll just turn that one off for now. What you could do is you could create something like a rectangle like this. That's roughly the proportions of the side of the bag. Let's say 1 across, 2 high. And then let's just move this to the top here so it's nice and full. If I just right click on this layer and do convert to smart object. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock the opacity of that down to 50%, press Command T. I'm going to position that in place roughly where the bag is. And if I hold down Alt or Option, I could just skew that a little bit and then bring this down. I'm just going to do this really roughly. Also, what I would do is add a mask to this and just mask out the area of the bag. In fact, I've got a mask pre-prepared here. If I just click on this one and then mask off that smart object, delete layer mask it off. All right, bring the opacity back up. Okay, so that's in place. Now all I have to do is double click on that smart object and it'll open up a separate file. I'll bring up my libraries panel again. We'll throw in a different markup this time. Let's throw in the badge. So pop that in the middle. Drop it down a little bit. And then we'll just turn off the background layer and save. And if I go back to my bag mockup, there it is. Because I've done the angling within Photoshop, and I converted it to a smart object before I did the angles. Now, whenever I want to change this out, I just have to change the proportions. I just have to double click into the smart object, change this, and then reposition things. And all I have to do is just press save, and I'll update that smart object in place and put it where I want it to be.
That's awesome.
Pretty really cool, eh?
And that's another thing about getting like really good mock-ups. You'll notice that designers tend to like have a folder of like, this is a really good mock-up. It's when they've got the shadows, they've got the angles, like, and it's really easy to use and high quality.
Plug for Adobe, stock.adobe.com. Click on templates. Loads of great assets in there that you can use. But obviously, it's great to make your own as well, and having the skill to do that. And obviously the Firefly tools as well. It's really, really handy. That would have taken me so long to mask out all of those t-shirts and reposition them. Look, it even did the vest on Anton here and swapped it out because we're going to need vest variations of this as well.
Singlet,
like. It has, yes, singlet. Sorry, that's an Australian way of saying that. Yeah, and there we go. So and look,
you're a
even that one.
Now, so you're lucky that.
I know, I do. No, rubbish. Don't get me out, please. So pretty handy,
really cool.
eh?
Really cool. I love that. Fantastic. And it's true. And it's like, yes, you could do it, but it's also like your time. Like, would you do that? Would you have done that? Probably not. You probably would have just taken the photo of the people or maybe masked one person out like you did in the first one. So
yeah, exactly.
Nice. It's kind of nice to have.
Add a little step, isn't it? Just saves us all a bit of time. But anything you can do to sell the design in a bit better to a client, in my opinion, you should be doing. And when you have tools like this that speed that process up, it's unbelievable. Really, really, saves you in a pinch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. That's amazing. And if you missed yesterday, there's so much good stuff in James's crafting of this logo as well. So definitely go check that out, especially if you made it to the end of this and you can see that James started from scratch, which was really cool. You see the sketches and the ideation and the different kind of ideas as well at the start, which is really great. James, thank you so much. Always learn so much from you and always have a great time hanging out with you on Adobe Live.
Thanks, mate. Hopefully see you soon in person. But appreciate the invite back, and call me anytime. I'm happy to do it.
We'll do it again for sure. Thank you everybody for watching live, on demand, etc.